So Suzanne, yeah, thank you. Where is Suzanne? Yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. What a kind of symbolic of what's going on here, isn't it? So yeah, the yin and the yang, uh, because then in the late morning we got a little bit of the yin. So all of the energy in the room here in these exercises. I'm Steve Farrell, by the way. I'm the executive director of Humanities team. Let me introduce some of my partners that I didn't get a chance to introduce yesterday or the day before. Stephen Donaco here, who's the program director for Conscious Business. Dee Meyer and Annette Kennedy, are they in the room? Dee, Annette, Dee. Okay. And then Jim, do you want to stand up? Jim is a part of the program. Adam, do you want to stand up? These are all really beautiful colleagues and partners in Humanities team. So first, let me just acknowledge what's here, which is pretty special, isn't it? Barbara, after lunch, was walking up to share really this incredible, like, garden bed that we've created. This 12-month Awaken New Species was amazing, right? I mean, really amazing, because it set the stage for the depth of what's happening here, where not only individually we're feeling into presence in this really deep and powerful way, but that it's manifesting in such a beautiful way among everybody in this room. I suspect they're lifelong relationships here, and there's a movement here. We're gonna talk about that. We believe there's a movement here. Yesterday, Barbara asked me to. She said, "Steve, share the vision and the movement. We're not just selling classes anymore." Hopefully, we've never been just selling classes. I'm looking forward to more conversations with you all. We've never been endeavoring to sell classes. We will, this afternoon and tomorrow, we'll share, though, our vision and what's rolling out, and we'll talk a lot about a movement. Let me now, though, just share a couple things about Humanities team. One, did you all see the email we sent out this morning? It says, "Surely it's our time." Okay, great. We send out these emails about once a week, a really key email that talks about what we're doing. And surely it's our time. It says, with what's going on in the world, where we are clearly at a decision point. This devolution, evolution thing, it is so real, right? It is so real. It is right here in front of us. And Humanities team is saying, we are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. And the whole reason we're here is for this conscious evolution movement. To journey with you all, people, organizations all over the world into conscious evolution, into the fullness of presence, into this future, this flourishing future. And honestly, for many of us, we don't believe that there's any other reason we're here. I don't feel like there's any other reason that I'm embodied. And we're a nonprofit. We're 15 years old. To this point, I've never been paid, and a lot of the people in our organization are either not paid or lightly paid, and we plan to increase that. But I share that because that's telling you about what we're devoted to. When we say, surely it's our time, we mean it. It is really our time. As well, in the transformational education that we offer, we have a little different vision. It's tied to this conscious evolution journey. And it's that we offer education that not only is bringing us into the fullness of who we are, but that's serving humanity, that's serving conscious evolution. So it's not just, I'll call it rabbit hole transformation, where there's some powerful stuff being taught, like how to remove abundance blocks and even how to become a rock star in the transformational education space. And I don't diminish that. There's some value in that. But like if we're at a decision point and there's devolution on one side and evolution on another side, there's like some really important transformational education we need to get out there. So that's what Humanities Team is devoted to, is the mission, and then offering these programs that are nothing but vehicles supporting the mission, supporting the movement, this conscious evolution movement. So just breathe on that. So let me talk about the backdrop as this meeting's happening. Just for no other reason than to provide a backdrop. As you know, in California, there's some serious fires going on, right? I have a 14-year-old daughter who yesterday flew to California to be with her friend. She's in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is not in the middle of the fire area. Fires are north and they're south. But do you know the air quality is so poor in Santa Cruz that they have to wear breathing masks? And America Loves Football, they're canceling like Cal's football game and these football games and things in the state because it's not just smoky. It's like there are carcinogens in the air. It's dangerous. The election recount that's going on, the polarity in politics. There was something this past week about there was a painting by a living artist that was sold for $90 million. There's never a living artist has never fetched so much for a painting. So at this time, when there's so much crisis, there's a 1% that's like buying really neat paintings, for $90 million. You may know in Brazil, this whole nationalist populist bug that's spreading, Brazil just elected their nationalist populist leader. So the Amazon, they're like, there's a lot of resources in the Amazon, let's go get the resources. Now, I mention this only because I don't want to be New Age and just focused all on the positive. I'll get to that, I promise you. But there's a backdrop, which is why we say we're at a decision point between devolution and evolution. And it's a really important decision point, and there's a huge positive, actually, in the devolution. Even over lunch, where we were talking, and, one of the leaders said, yeah, but do you really think the change that we're talking about affecting can happen? I mean, look at the way we're organized. Look at business, how it operates, capitalism. Look at politics, how it operates. So yeah, we're in a great energy and and there's good things going on. But do you really think this can happen? And I do. I really do. Why? Because that devolution thing that's happening as we're spiraling down, it's like a big smell the coffee moment. People that are unconscious, are like, I don't know that we can't do this any longer, right? We're losing homes and can't breathe and stuff, and people's votes not being counted, and mowing down the Amazon, So there's this huge smell the coffee moment that's just getting worse and worse and worse. And there's this happening. And things like this happening all over the world. As we know, we are not. This is really unique. as many people have shared, it's a one of a kind, really, in many respects. But this energy of presence, of conscience, of new humanity, of evolution, of ascension, of evolution, it is real. And it is growing. I mean, it's really growing. So that's why I'm optimistic. Because it's a great model, and we've got things launching in politics like what Christopher Life is doing. And he's just one. There are other leaders in education and healthcare. Larry Dossey in healthcare, right? The Hendricks, Gay and Katie Hendricks in relationships. We could keep going and talk the whole wheel. There are revolutionaries just lighting it on fire in their part of the wheel. And that is growing. So let me sometimes I like to bring in these movies too that kind of tell the story in a really simple way. Lion King, where you've got this beautiful nature that's all about life, right? They're just trying to live their lives, and nurture their community, and then it's taken away. But then, like for most of us on our own hero's journey, there's that time of irresponsibility, right, where the leader's son, who could help, just heads off, and he's just having fun, and whatever. And this poor community's suffering. But then, like all of us on our hero's journey, we come back. We smell the coffee, and we say, "Okay, I'm in. I'm ready to be responsible." And then this community comes back and flourishes. Likewise with Avatar. And these great filmmakers just capture the narrative so beautifully. These big meta narratives in Avatar, where you got from this planet, we're like as if we hadn't done enough to our own planet, we're sending people into outer space to this distant moon called Avatar, right? These poor Na'vi indigenous people are just living a beautiful life in presence. But there's this unobtainium, which is interesting. They call it unobtainium. And they're blasting these poor people, out of their homes to bring this unobtainium back to the earth. So, when we really break it down and make this really, really simple, that's what we're doing. I mean, we're standing with life in both cases. So that all of us here in this room, humanities team, it's a real simple choice. And I'm an entrepreneur by background. I'm a business guy by background. I'm not, and I hug trees too, but I grew up, as a business guy. But this unbridled capitalism thing, where we're like nature can't nurture itself, and it could, if it, on the current trajectory, we could be sending people to other distant planets to blast people out for some resource. Well, so the simple thing that we're doing is we're just standing with life. Right? We're presence in the sacred. We're seeing the divine in each other. We know ourselves as emanations of the divine. We know animal life and plant life as emanations of the divine. And it's just distilling down to we're just supporting life, So, yeah, there will be financial incentives, and there are unconscious work. We'll get to that. But to just focus it on, to have a civilization based on unbridled capitalism, it's nutty, because look what it's doing to our planet. We have to choose life. That which is life-affirming, life-sustaining, and life-enhancing. So that's what all of our work is about. That's the movement that's forming. So it's the beautiful thing that we're all feeling into, this feeling of presence. I could even be really quiet right now. So we can all really deeply feel into presence. And our life is now based on the inner plane, right? That's maybe one of the key distinctions between unconscious and conscious, instead of the outer plane where it's all visual and the illusion of separation is so powerful, and this old American dream of just trying to go coin money. We drop that, go into this inner plane, and then we're feeling into real prosperity, true prosperity, feeling into our own divine presence, divine guidance, divinity, and we're divinely guided. And so, as we look at what the vision of this is, as we extend it out, a movement that's a conscious evolution movement. Christopher Light said it so beautifully for politics. I mean, we really, it's there. He visually just created the whole picture of what it looks like, how it feels, and what we're doing. And the conscious evolution movement is bringing that to all the spheres of life. The wheel of co-creation is magnificent. It's bringing that to all spheres of life. It's just as radically beautiful, because it's all about affirming what's the sacred and supporting individuals and families and communities in the world and all of life, animal life, plant life, all of life. So let me segue to something. Then my partners are going to come in, Barbara and Stephen, here in just a moment. But so as we look at that vision, let me just go back to this: our birth is a crisis thing. So just to kind of look at the demographics of people all over the world. Some are in that smell of the coffee place where, and incidentally, I'm not talking down to them. I was there myself. So, right, we're all on a journey, and there's no destination to the journey. There's no complete mastery, as I understand it. They're just higher and higher mountaintops. So some of the demographic of the earth is just smelling the coffee and saying, God, things are getting so bad. It's like, I didn't think that climate change was even real, but maybe it's real. And things are so nasty in politics. And things that you hold sacred, like people's vote being counted, that it's gotten so bad that maybe there's a real crisis here. So there's a lot of people actually in that demographic, a lot of people all over the world. Then there's the demographic of people that understand the crisis, and then the demographic of people that don't understand the birth, the whole birth of consciousness, and then the demographic of people that understand the birth. Global Oneness Day is devoted to the birth. We've done it for 9 years. Do it again, the 10th year next year. All these amazing leaders from all over the world give up their time. They all come in for free. We spend, real quality time recording their panel. And it's so powerful. When you have, and Barbara's one of them. Barbara was on the first call. She helped launch Humanity's Team in 2003, Wilsonville, Oregon. So amazing people that are giving of their time to just say, we really are all one. Everything is interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. And in fact, we're actually one. And when we lose our bodies, you'll know you're one. It's like, there isn't any separation you can feel, You will know you're one when you lose your body. And so many beautiful leaders and activists that have come in their own words and in their own heart language, share that. So there's the whole demographic of people that are really just understanding, wow, maybe we really are all one. Then there's the demographic of people that start living it a little bit, and the demographic of people that are living it more fully, and then the demographic of people that are really living it powerfully, fully. This room, that are deep in the new humanity, that are new humans. Homo amor universalis. And then there are people that want to step into leadership to help go spawn this everywhere, in communities and in nations and globally. And let me say we're all leaders in a real way. You can feel that, talk to anybody in this room. But people not in this room too. We are all leaders. Every person is a leader. There's nobody that's not a leader. Everybody's teaching something and being true to what's true to them. So, but I'm using leader here in the context of the movement. I'm using leader in the context of, okay, we are at a decision point. There's devolution going on and there's evolution going on. And it's a serious moment. The biggest moment that the earth has ever experienced. And I'm going to go just radically turn a part of life as we know it on the planet upside down to bring in higher consciousness, to bring in evolution. Christopher Life's an example of that. He said, man, I was given a doozy. He was given a doozy. Huh. You stand back and look at what that man is. Because there's a lot, when he leaves the room, when you go to a site, there's a lot of execution, I'll call it, to make that real. And that's not an easy one. It's huge. So I'm talking about leaders in that context of people that are saying that I'm called to go on a global level, on a massive level, to bring consciousness to some part of life as we know it. I think one of the things Barbara probably talked about yesterday was each of us feeling into now. What are we being called to? And that is so important that we get in touch with what are we being called to? And honoring that, whatever that is, that's the impulse of God herself, I'll call it. It's why we embody. It's some especially this group with what you've gone through, a year-long immersion and Awaken New Species and all the things you did up to that time. There's some really huge thing I know that every single person is being called to. And if each of us can deeply get in touch with that and follow that, then we'll play our role in this movement. We're going to tell you about a program that's part of what Barbara and Humanity's team are going to devote ourselves to for the next 9 months. And it's only some number of you in the room would be called to something like this. Others of you are going to be called to something very different. Let me first speak to the people called to something very different. We're like massively in service to you, that are going to go do whatever you're going to do. And I promise you that the emails and the communications you get from Humanity's team, the interviews that we do, which are free interviews, Global Oneness Day, which is a free program, we have our Facebook community, which is quite large and it's quite active. All of these things are massively in service to all of you. So, first and foremost, we're in service to the movement, this conscious evolution movement, and the role that every single one of us will play. And if there's something I can do or we can do in Humanity's team, and we're a little team and not paid or underpaid, but if we can do something to support you, we will. And I know this is Barbara Marks Hubbard and Sherwood, the Foundation for Conscious Evolution, also a nonprofit. The absolute same thing, and I know that's why you love Barbara. Because she's so 100% honest and in integrity and just totally tells you what is her truth, always. So we are massively in support of every single person in this room. As an organization, we need to decide where we're going to focus. And for the next 9 months, we're going to focus on a leadership program for people that are on this conscious evolution path. We're going to tell you about it. We'll have a lot of fun telling you about it. It's like a huge investment for our two relatively small organizations to put 9 months of our time into training these 40 leaders is a huge investment for us and for Barbara. It's kind of what we feel like we're called to do. On that demographic, as I was going through it, we have never focused on the leadership segment. All of our focus has been on those other segments where they didn't even know it was a crisis, understanding what consciousness is, stepping into consciousness, more fully embodying it, and then fully embodying it like Awaken New Species. This is the first time that we're saying the people that have a calling to really go out in a massive way, and we'll call it carry the torch, is Barbara. Barbara's turning 89. Which doesn't mean Barbara's going away anytime soon. But, it makes some sense to identify the Barbaras that want to carry that torch. Christopher Life would be one example. And by the way, many of you in this room would too. I haven't had a chance to talk to a lot of you. I don't know your whole story. I know some of your stories. So I don't mean to keep coming back to one individual's. Because I'm often the person sitting in a chair in the room like you. So, let me just namaste, right, to all of you. Because I know you all are probably carrying some pretty nice torches right now yourselves. So, let me honor that. This program is going to identify people that just want to get in touch with their skills, where they feel, first of all, called to play on this other level. And then we have created a program together that's going to help journey them into the fullness of their potential. So we're going to talk about that in some detail. What we're not looking for, there's an application actually to start it, so we can just be synced. So we're just asking you if you go within and you get that inner yes of, okay, I'm feeling like this is my destiny. We're asking you as a first step to fill out an application, and it's not that long, so we can talk to you and do a sync to make sure that it's a real fit for you and for us. We're not looking for people that just dearly love Barbara, but that aren't really looking to do, to kind of go play a bigger role. My mother's one of those. My mother went through Awaken New Species. She's in a senior home in Virginia. And, she says, we were in a conversation a few years ago, remember, with Neil Donald Walsh, and my mother says to Neil, she says, I'm a apostle of Barbara Marx Hubbard. So my mother, she dearly loves Barbara, went through this whole year-long program. But she is not going to, candidly, she's 84. Yeah. But she's not going to go out and take it to a global level. We are not looking for her. Now, as well, and Barbara could get on her soapbox on this one. You'll probably hear it yourself. We are not looking for people that, there's some that really just are so turned off by the news and media. They're like, no, I don't ever read papers. I don't watch any media. We don't do any of that. So they're relatively isolated, as we talk about devolution and what's happening. And I, by the way, I don't mean to make that sound like negative either, right? So, because one thing about presence is we kind of come out of judgment. There's no judgment anymore. We're just all giving our gifts. So, but for this program, all I'm saying is people that are reading current events and that want to be active and really feel called to that. So that's what we're after. So in our application gets at that too. Okay, well, I think do we have a break at 3:30 or 3? Yeah. So why don't we why don't we go ahead and how shall we do this, Stephen? We're doing this in presence, so we don't have a we're fluid. So let me
some of you have.
Yeah, he's a beautiful, person. He's the divine feminine, as we know, it's not just women, right? The divine feminine is like all of us, so balanced. And Stephen has got, he's got that beautiful balance. And has done leadership programs and led them and kind of made it his work to do this for the last more than a decade. So, yeah, a beautiful partner that I get to work with. And if you in Humanities team, you might see him. He's on doing Facebook Lives and leading conscious business groups and all kinds of great stuff. He's really a beautiful, beautiful human being. You'll enjoy Stephen.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that, and thank you for bringing me into this work and trusting me as well. So I just a big vow of gratitude to you for all of this. So perhaps what we could do is just to really ground and to become present with what Steve spoke about, and also just to continue to circulate our own bodies, because kinesthetic intelligence is one of the key intelligences. I invite everyone just to stand up and stretch. Get the muscles moving a little bit. Quicken the circulation, the digestion. I recognize after lunch, the drowsiness settles in, so. And then while you're standing, Just taking a couple of nice deep breaths into your belly. Feed the fire of that solar plexus chakra. It's going to help digest your food. And then invite you to close your eyes. And feel your feet firmly planted on the ground. Just become ultra aware of your connection to the earth. Just feel every toe of each foot touching the ground. And then allow that awareness to connect all the way back to your heels. And just feel your feet completely, fully, strongly connected to the earth. And then in your mind's eye, invite you to see everyone in this room connected, heart to heart, by a golden thread. It connects each one of us in a beautiful web of co-creation. And then visualize this room enfolded in light, enfolding all of us. And then in your mind's eye, see that light continue to radiate out beyond this room. To encompass, literally, the entire world. We are both angels and agents of the light. Become attuned to the truth that the power of our intention is in some way unknown to us in this moment, but nevertheless in some way having a loving impact on every living, sentient being on this earth right now. And isn't it wonderful that we don't have to figure out how that happens? Just know that it is. And then together, and just invite us all to take one last very deep breath into your belly. As much air as you can get in there. Hold it for a moment at the top. And then exhale through your mouth. Push as much air out as you can. And when you're ready, return to your normal breathing rhythm. Open your eyes. Be here. Be aware right now. You're welcome. like Steve, I spent a lot of time in business. And I wish I could have started my meetings this way, in the boardroom. As Steve mentioned, I'm also the program director for our Conscious Business Initiative, which I've talked to some of you about already. I haven't been able to be present in the room the whole time, but during lunch and just in passing, I've mentioned that to some of you. And Humanities Team was one of 4 organizations that created the Conscious Business Declaration in about 2015. Is that right, Steve? And there are 7 principles of conscious business, really grounded in the truth of our oneness, and recognizing that business is a human endeavor that ideally is in support of that. So we have a training and certification program around conscious business that I was honored enough to actually take as a student, and then Steve invited me in at some point after doing some volunteering for Humanities Team to direct the program. And it's sacred work. And I really truly believe that business has the potential to be a force for good. So that's one of the things that I'm doing with Humanities Team. The other very exciting now is to be in partnership with Barbara on Evolutionary Ambassador. And this is, training is it's not the best word for it, because it's so much more than that. But the global leadership in the mission to co-create a new culture of deeper connection and accelerated evolution. And there's the URL bit.ly/Evolutionary Ambassador, which you can look at your leisure. So the question is, do you feel like you're meant to have a global impact? And I believe the truth for all of you is that you're all here to have a global impact, and we do that at various degrees and in various forms and at various degrees of scale. So regardless of who you are, what you want to do, what you're being called to do, we're all having a global impact anyway, just by you being here, participating in this event. Okay. So one of the biggest challenges humanity faces right now, as Steve was starting to allude to in his comments, is engaging enough people with the wisdom and skills to guide those who are lost back to an understanding of who they truly are. The time has come for anyone who feels called to contribute at the highest level to step forward and maximize their impact, to help guide all of humanity back to the deepest truth of all, that we are one, and allow this truth to infuse our every thought, word, and action in the world. And by the way, it's time for your evolutionary leadership development, or evolutionary leadership development. And by the way, so because I'm a business guy, I'm used to doing these slideshows. It's very two-dimensional. So what I would invite you as I go through these, and this is the way I thought about this today, was, think of this in multiple dimensions. So there's width to this, and there's depth, and there are other dimensions that probably don't have names yet, or labels, which is beautiful. So, we're looking at it in 2 dimensions, but it's much bigger than that, much more expansive. So it's time for evolutionary leadership development. What does that mean? What I want to do is just a really quick assessment or look at what traditional programs in leadership, quote unquote, do typically, and then what an evolutionary program might do. So traditional programs are largely didactic. I've been in these myself, meaning they're telling you things, they're imparting information, a lot of talking at you. Whereas an evolutionary program is truly interactive, recognizing that everyone is a source, where we all are all supported by, in, and through Source. Now, it's theoretical. Traditional programs tend to be theoretical, a lot of theory. Evolutionary program is practical. And this is about taking the work of evolution, the call to evolve, the evolutionary impulse, and bringing it forward and applying it in the world that we live in a practical, process-oriented way. Traditional program is excessively intellectual. I had a couple of conversations with folks in the last couple of days about feeling that like there's a judgment about, well, I don't know all the terms, or some of the language of evolution, and this evolutionary work it seems heady, but then when people got connected with their community in the program, like that immediately went away, and the words and the labels and the terms didn't matter. Yeah. So this is what we're talking about with an evolutionary program, is that it's courageously heart-centered. And it doesn't mean that we dismiss the intellectual, but we're integrating them with the heart. Traditional program, authoritative. Who's up on the stage with the microphone talking at you? Versus in an evolutionary program, synergistic. Everyone has a voice, everyone has an experience, everyone has something to offer. Everyone co-creates a program that's evolutionary. Traditional programs train you. Well, we train our dogs too. So an evolutionary program is birthing you. What did you want to be when you grew up? And this is to think about, like, when our human birth, and there's this question: what do you want to be when you grow up? We all had ideas about that. Well, now that we're being rebirthed, what do we want to be when we really grow up? That's what we're going to be doing in this program, is exploring that and supporting that. More than just asking the question, it's supporting the manifestation of the answer to the question. Okay. This, on that web page that I provided you the link to, this is one of the sections, so I'm not going to read this verbatim, but I just want to talk to some of it. So during the 6-month ambassador training, evolutionary ambassador training, we're doing a lot of things here that shouldn't be a surprise, and you would expect us to do, and for all of you to do. So deeply connecting with the divine energy, with universal evolution. Better able to understand and process the events of the world, and Steve alluded to this. So it's being aware enough of what's going on in the world so that you're informed enough to bring in the evolutionary perspective, the heart-centered perspective. I stopped watching television a long time ago, which doesn't mean that I don't follow the news anymore. I just do it differently. So if in this is helping you to better able to understand what's happening, to neutralize the emotional impact of that, and then showing up in a greater, deeper, more powerful evolutionary way. Engage in deep communication, in deep communion with pioneering souls, which is obviously what you've been doing the last year here. And then adapt to any situation by turning to the impulse of evolution within you, offering a healing response. So that adaptation is important, right? And the means by which you will do that is in community. So in the traditional program, leadership program, there's not a lot of talk about how to adapt. It's just you learn it, and then you sort of parrot what you've learned, and you go out and you kind of fumble your way through it to build expertise. Well, the adaptation is an evolutionary, in my estimation, adaptation is an evolutionary quality. That's to be encouraged. And that means that we're not always perfect either. And we can forgive ourselves and others for not always being perfect. Embodying advanced capacities of greater consciousness, freedom, loving order. Launch a movement, as Steve mentioned, for the conscious evolution of humanity. So this program is really supporting the movement. Forgive me for using a military term, but like the boot camp for the movement. Gain the wisdom and strength to lead at a global level. And then the last one is really important because this gets to that practical piece I was talking about earlier when I was doing the comparison, was to step onto any stage in the world. And we know somebody who's done that in this room. Step onto any stage in the world, Barbara. Calm and self-assured. Whether in a conversation in your local community, a city council meeting, in front of news cameras, testifying before Congress, or giving a speech at the United Nations, and speak your truth so clearly that it can be understood by anybody who hears you. Who wants to show up for that? And who visualizes themselves doing that? Yeah. Who visualizes themselves showing up like that? And I know of no other. I've never been involved in anything that's ever asked that question so boldly about showing up in these venues where the work must be done in order to transform our conditions, attitudes, our fears, and anxieties here on Earth. Okay. So just program structure, going to give you a really brief overview of what this looks like. There's 4 pillars to the program. Yeah, and there's what pillar 1, impulse and intent. Pillar 2 is inform and connect. Pillar 3 is identify and synergize. And then pillar 4 is organize and launch. There's a lot more about what each of those are on the program webpage, but just know that there's like these 4 overarching themes that we divide into pillars. And then it comes into roughly 20 modules. Think of it as like there's 20 lessons. Again, not the best word for it, but 20 modules, and then over 26 weeks. So that's 6 months. And each week, so there's a weekly session, and there's an online Zoom session, 90 minutes, with an optional 30 minutes afterward for anybody who wants to stick around and continue to integrate the material. So that's the instructional piece, and then there's a coaching and mentoring piece. So there's monthly coaching. So you get 1 coaching session a month, each ambassador, 1-to-1. 2 of those sessions will be with Barbara, one-on-one, and 4 with another coach. I'll be one of them, and we'll have some others as well. There will be 1 large monthly group mentoring session. That'll be a Zoom online session with Barbara. And then there's 2 retreats here at Sunrise. 2 live in-person retreats where we take and we continue to integrate and support the material and, frankly, the work that you're preparing to do. And not least, probably most, the peer support and community, which you've all have experienced this past year in ANS. So self-directed small group learning partnerships, private Facebook group for ongoing online discussion, and then what I called, and Barbara used this, living and ever-expanding SynCon. Because I've been working with Barbara on the outline for this, and one of the thoughts was it would end with a SynCon, and I thought, well, perhaps it's an ever-expanding SynCon. So, but more detail about that on the page. There's a lot more behind all of this that we've detailed. That takes you to the website. So I was going to go ahead and review the program page. Yeah, so the break is in 5 minutes. So maybe what we could do is take our break. You think? Yeah, please. Yeah. Let Steve segue us.
Okay, yeah, let's have you share a little, because this whole conversation started a long time ago. Evolutionary Ambassador, and it was just about, goes all the way back to the Eisenhower White House, where you sat down with Eisenhower and said, "Mr. President, what's the meaning of power that is good?" And he said, "I have no idea." and that's Barbara's life is about that. But my own feeling as we talked about this was just, it's been so exciting for you as you've been looking at passing the torch to 40 leaders that are going to take this work, your work, our work, I'll call it our work because it's our work, to its destiny. So this movement is going to its destiny, and just your own feelings around that. Where you're working so closely with 40 leaders that are taking our torch to its destiny.
Wow, thank you. First of all, I'm just so grateful that this should be happening. I mean, I would never have thought of it myself. And since I haven't heard both of you speak about it, except to me personally, for me to actually realize what you're saying, to actually realize it, maybe, and to realize it together with all of us who have been awakening as a new species together. And think of what that awakening of the new species together has done. It's been amazing, because we created a field in which that awakening went the next step for everybody. So I'll just say a few things about the timing of this. Not only my age, I think I'm going to live as long as I need to. So I'm actually not concerned right now about dying. And I would like to say about this moment from when I asked, it started in 1945 when the U.S. dropped the first bombs on Japan, and I immediately saw we had the power that eventually would become the power of God. And I thought somebody knew why we had all this power and what it was for. And everybody knows this story, but when I finally ended up with President Eisenhower, "Mr. President, what do you think is the meaning of the military, industrial, scientific, technological powers of humanity that's good?" And he says, "I have no idea." So it really occurred to me in 1953, well, let's find out. Because if we don't find out the meaning of all this power that's good, it can't be guided. So what I did from 1953 to this very present moment is dedicate myself to try to understand the meaning of our power and how to use it for the good. And so just the first thing that was necessary was to know the new story of evolution. Because if you don't know that nature has been evolving for billions of years, crisis after crisis after crisis, to higher consciousness, greater freedom, and more complex order. Now, that's a trajectory that's so incredibly amazing. Number one thought. Number two thought is we're in the exact shift point of the trajectory. I could see that even way before now, but now where they say it's either devolution or evolution. So I don't know how, I'm not going to have a long talk now, but what I have realized is because we live in the crisis point, and because it could go down quickly, it also has to be able to go up quickly. And what is it that can make it go up quickly is the way nature has done it for really billions of years, connect separate parts together to make a new whole greater than the sum of the parts. Single cell to multi-cell to animal to human to us. I could see that if us humans at this jump point were to connect what's working, what's creative, and what's good, both internally and operationally and collectively, we would be the jump ourselves. So I got into that mode. And I guess I took all the rest of the years to find all the leaders. And I met a lot of them, and I invited many of them I learned from them, and I brought them to my courses. And the thought of us actually bringing them all together, not just to have a lineup of leaders, but this is where I think you come in, Stephen Danico, where the joining genius of the leaders of our movement combined with the evolutionary story of creation and the time of a quantum jump, is it possible that by doing this we would experience something that we have never been able to experience before personally? Is it possible? You think so? Is it possible that I could experience something that I've never experienced before? Because when nature connects separate parts together to make a new whole, here is a lesson of evolution. Evolution creates radical newness. Now, it's very hard to realize evolution creates radical newness when you're living in a short lifespan. But the radical newness, for example, from a quark to a cell, or from a single cell to a multicell, or a multicell to an animal, or an animal to Homo sapiens sapiens, we're in the jump of Homo sapiens sapiens to Homo universalis, Homo amore universalis. We're born in the jump. In that sense, we're the most privileged human generation that ever lived. Because we've had a lot of innovators and creators and visionaries and seers and spiritual masters, but they didn't live during the jump. We do. Now, because of Stephen Danico's and Stephen Farrell's, surely, experience with group process and the kind of group process that we've been experiencing here, what would happen if not only you and me and us, but the leaders too, would experience their own jump by joining? Wow. Not just by telling us what they already know that we probably all do know by their work and their literature. What if we can create an environment, because all the leaders that will be coming on already know what we're saying. They know it's the jump point. We all do. But do we know the jump? How does that happen? I think we got a taste of it here. Something happened here. People have come up to me and said, what happened here? You know, we've all been to hundreds of conferences. it's really hard to say what happened here. Do you want to just say a word? Anybody? What happened? Transformation happened. Resonance happened. Community happened. Intimacy happened. That is right. Intimacy happened. Collaboration happened. Magic happened. The magic of evolution happened because if we, here, not only do we have to expect radical newness, but nature takes quantum jumps to new levels of wholeness. In other words, wholeness is inherent in the nature of reality. You humans could not make any whole system like a body. You remember trillions of cells being organized like me talking? Could we do that? No. So what's doing it? Okay, the spiritual component of this for me is the immense spiritual genius of the impulse of evolution as the self-organizing universe inside us. Who's doing it? Who done it? And you can't just say an exterior God. The interior genius of evolution that knows how to organize separate parts into new wholes at times of quantum jumps is where we're at with our inner knowing. Yes? If we can facilitate that. We cannot do that by ordinary courses. We can't do it by ordinary reading or conversations. So the genius of this, gentlemen, here, which would add to the genius of the impulse of evolution with some coherence here. Let's imagine that this particular event is a natural moment that evolution itself is creating. You know, I would never have thought of this myself. Let's assume that nature, the self-organizing genius, has to find moments of particular adaptability of a certain number of entities where nature can do its genius with. Could we be a vehicle for nature's genius? A vehicle. I really think we're a vehicle because I don't think anybody could conceive of how to do this. We've got a lot of geniuses around, and if we could really figure out how to solve all these problems by bringing this together, we would have. And the fact that it seems to be people thinking it's getting worse, it's because we don't know this. Wow. I'm really just getting it myself. If smart people could figure it out, it would be figured out. There's lots of smart people in every field. But the synergistic convergence of that which is emergent, and I would say the spiritual impulse of the divine intent of evolution as you. See, I inherited from my love of Teilhard de Chardin the divine intent of evolution. It's not just I have an intent. Evolution has an intent inside me, and I said yes. And that yes has carried me right here to this moment. So it's got a good aim, that yes. How did this yes get me here? And how is your yes, where will it get you? It would be good for a moment to just think of your biggest possible yes. Connected with others' biggest possible yeses. Wow. Because I'm looking at you and I'm guessing a little bit about your biggest possible yes. And my biggest possible yes, you know, a kind of planetary awakening with the unique self symphony. I mean, I have a huge yes inside me. What if everybody's individual yes, by synergizing with other great teachers' yes, would be the jump? Yeah, what if that's the purpose? that we have a shared evolutionary purpose here. That everybody's unique yes, which would be the impulse of evolution, alive as you, felt, internalized. You spent years cultivating it, but because we happen to live at the moment of the quantum jump for evolution itself, could that be true that everybody's yes is crystallizing? Do you think? Could it be true that everybody's yes is ready to cohere with other people's yeses? And that the methodology of this, with all these other leaders that we're bringing on, but we're taking ourselves as the leaders that we are nurturing in ourselves, to be able to go out in the world that maybe the existing leadership, as it is, doesn't yet do. Because if they did, they would cross over the jump. Maybe something uniquely special is needed through the synergy of those who are called to be leaders at the time of the quantum jump. I mean, I'm really probing into this as a question for myself, because this is not a sales talk. This is a question. And only you and I and myself, I have to feel this is true that I'm saying to you. But as I'm looking at you and I'm seeing what happened here, and what small group work does, and what all these leaders that we will be identifying, and the skill here, I think that I would like to conclude this by saying it could be that evolution has created an opportunity that somehow Steve Farrell and Stephen Dinoco saw and invited me to say yes. That's what you did. Invited me to say yes to something more than I could possibly have said yes to on my own. And maybe the invitation for anyone who wants to do this is that you are ready to say yes to more than you could possibly do without being a member of a quantum jump team. Maybe that's true. What do you think? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. All right. Let's take a deep breath in. Just hold that. And we're really being very intentional about what leaders come in to this, because we realize, to your point, Barbara, that who we regard as leaders out there, quote unquote, even if they're putting themselves out there as enlightened beings, struggle with really participating. I'm thinking of the constellation exercise, and who's excluding whom. So thank you. So I suppose, should we just is it appropriate to take a break here and then come back and let's do that. And how long is our break? 15 minutes. All right, so that's we return about 5 minutes to 4, according to that clock. New species, welcome back to the room. Yes, there we are. We're going to get re-engaged. Places, indeed. All right, welcome back. All right. If we have not adequately inspired you, I'd like to share a story, somebody's story. And this is, I'm going to share a story of a friend of mine. I was born and raised in Chicago, and I moved to a little city called Valparaiso, Indiana, almost 4 years ago. Valparaiso means Vale of Paradise, which is kind of neat. And Sharon is also from Valparaiso. I was happy to meet her here. So there you go, local Valpo person. So I wanted to share the story of a friend of mine in Valparaiso who, in 2015, was awarded by Barbara with recipient of the Wheel of Co-Creation Golden Innovator Award. And if you remember Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland, Barbara, Kathy received the award from you for the media part of the Wheel of Communications. So this is Kathy and Barbara at a place called Bodhi Spiritual Center in Chicago. So this is sort of this is to me, this is the lovely proof that we're all connected. There are no accidents. And actually, Barbara, this is the first time I met you myself, very briefly at this event, because I was there when Kathy got this award. But I want to mention Kathy because she is an evolutionary ambassador. So if you're wondering whether this is possible and if there are people doing it, Kathy's one of them for sure. She has done really amazing work, and I wanted to talk a little bit about her background and just read you something she wrote to me to present to all of you. So Kathy's a social media pioneer, really got involved in social media right at the cusp of kind of the blogging phenomenon, and then continued to build up her competency doing that. She's involved in press relations. I'm going to give you more detail about that in a moment. She's an author. She's creator of a time bank. How many are familiar with what a time bank is? So time banking is basically time as currency. So instead of doing things and providing services and serving people for money, for cash money, you do it for time. So 1 hour of my time's the same as 1 hour of your time, regardless of your skill level and what you do. So, so literally, I might mow your lawn and then you might give me an hour of legal advice. I mean, literally, there are people involved in all sorts of different professions who are in time banking. So Kathy created Northwest Indiana Time Bank called Co-Thrive. And then she's also involved in an initiative called Valpo Next. So it's an initiative in our city of Valparaiso, which is a community organization to realize the long-term vision plan for Valparaiso. So that's a really quick background on her, but I wanted to read an email that she sent me, because I asked her if I could use her as an example. I said, I'm going to this event at Sunrise Ranch, and it just occurred to me that, well, you were awarded by Barbara with this Innovator Award, and it was perfect. So Kathy wrote back to me and she said, I have considered myself a conscious evolutionary since reading Conscious Evolution, Awakening the Power of Our Social Potential, nearly 20 years ago. When I read the book back in the late 90s, social media had not yet been invented. Social platforms remained, for me, an important source of power that conscious evolutionaries need to be able to harness. With 30 years of sales and marketing experience, I see the value in old school media methods, she says pre-web, such as good old-fashioned press releases and cultivating relationships with journalists. A recent example, I was working the polls on election day in Porter County, Indiana, and this is this election, this midterm that she's talking about. And there were some major problems with polling places opening late, absentee ballots not arriving to be counted on time, possible breaches in the chain of custody for important documents, and even ballots, etc. Realizing journalists today are tasked with doing their jobs, often with fewer resources allotted them, I know it's important to try to compile facts and information for them in a cogent way. To that end, I put together a Google document and shared it on various social media sites as well as via email. It continues to grow as more poll workers add their stories to this online collaborative document. The effort resulted in CBS Channel 2 from Chicago coming to Valparaiso the day after the election to interview me and others I pulled together for their story. They ran follow-up stories for the next 2 days as I continued to help them meet and speak with people. The reporter, Megan Hickey, told me I was, quote, a reporter's dream, unquote. Earning her trust has already resulted in her agreeing to interview another one of my clients, not election-related, on Monday in Chicago. Additionally, in November 2017, I started as part-time coordinator for Valpo Next, a local nonprofit. I got involved because I love the vision. Quote, the Valparaiso community will be a place where people take care of one another and are highly involved in local community organizations and efforts. Active and progressive, with a strong sense of place and environmental ethic, it will honor authenticity and uniqueness in culture and business initiatives and seek the well-being of its people, unquote. Over the past year of working on that project has opened me up to many new tools and resources I believe could also be relevant or helpful. So Kathy's also done the Pachamama Alliance Game Changer Intensive and is involved in asset-based community development, plus she's a certified mushroom picker, something like that. So she's just, to me, is like an example of an evolutionary ambassador now who's doing this work. And I just wanted to share that story with you because this is exactly what we're seeking and aiming and intending to develop in people who join the program, is to work with the system such as it is and to know all of those intricacies so that you can show up and help influence it for the greater good and the greatest good. And exactly as Kathy had done with that story I related about CBS 2 coming out to Valparaiso to take a closer look at our election fiasco in Porter County. So they call it Broward County of the North is the name they gave it. So that was just briefly what I wanted to share about Kathy. And okay, so we're gonna, okay, I got this slide and then we're gonna go into the program page. So is your evolutionary impulse calling you to become an ambassador? And again, that's the site which I've already shared with you. So I guess we'll just go into the program page. And Steve, do you want to say anything else before we do that, or just bring it up? Okay, so give me a moment. Let me get this up. Okay, some of you may have already seen this during the break. So just want to take you through the page, and I'm not going to read this verbatim, believe me. So, so don't fret that you're going to hear me drone on about each piece of this. But we're limiting to 40 participants, as Steve had said, and then there's really the upfront here is asking you the question that Steve and I started with and Barbara expanded on is, do you feel like you're meant to have a global impact? So, you know, the question, and really the invitation is, if you believe you're ready to become one of the guides, Barbara and we are ready to pass the torch so you can embody everything Barbara's learned and practice on her own journey as you carry the fire of evolution forward.
And this piece I had shown earlier. So these are the main points at the high level of what you'll get. And then there's a note from Barbara on here as well, which I'll leave you to read when you have a chance to browse this page in more detail. And what I really want to get down to is just some of the additional detail that I referred to earlier. So remember I said there were 4 pillars, 4 main sections to the program. So pillar 1 is impulse and intent. And each module, there's a description of each module within these pillars. So module 1 is the introduction to the program. So we talk about the intention of the program. And we give you some sense of what that is. So in this module, you'll gain clarity about the new era of evolution we are entering, and you'll become into powerful alignment with the mission of the Deep Self-Evolution program. And then getting into the introduction to module 2, connection with the divine. So we're really here just affirming your impulse and your intention and strengthening you in that. That's what this first pillar is about. And then we move into pillar 2, which is to inform and connect. Now I'm just going to pluck out some examples. So acquainting yourself with the social situation in the world, and remember we talked about the importance of just understanding what's happening and not following the news or the social situation such that you're getting swept up in the vortex of it, but that you're informed, that you're coming from it from a neutral place and understanding what's going on so that you can take this work and go forward with it. So then module 8, the technologies of the new culture. So one of the things I've noticed in programs, Steve talked about he's got a technical experience in Silicon Valley. One of the industries I worked in was technology, and in programs I've been in, leadership programs, it's amazed me how there seems to be with a lot of folks a gap between their professional experience and their technological literacy. And I've seen this time and time and time again. And in this program, I think it's really essential that we talk about technologies. Like, what is the cloud? What is artificial intelligence? What is an algorithm? And understanding what these things are, how they work, and how they influence the world that we're in. And of course, Barbara's a huge advocate of the power of technology, so it's essential that we talk about it in this program. And it's not about making you a coder. It's not about giving you low-level technology skills, but it's about giving you technological literacy so that you understand what is influencing the world that we're in and how these tools can and should be used as a force for good, a force for evolution, as opposed to everything that we see in the media that talks about the dangers of things like artificial intelligence, or how people are hacking into, or the potential for people to hack into self-driving automobiles and that kind of thing. So it's all very fear-based, but we want to talk about the potential of the technologies, and in order for us to do that, to help to build your technological literacy. So that's what that's all about. And then we have also the new news. Develop the knowledge and savvy to influence and contribute to a new paradigm of news and the dissemination of information. So that's that story that I told of Kathy, of how she was able to work and create a relationship with a reporter, because this is what, so the media is very much like anything about relationships. So if you build relationships with the people in the business, they're going to listen to you when you call. They're not, I'll go so far as to say that I believe that not everyone in the news is always looking for the blood and guts lead story. That there are journalists who really want to tell the good story, the good news. And if folks like us have relationships with people in the media that put this stuff on TV, on the web, on the radio, and so forth, we're going to turn this. The trend is going to shift, and we're going to start to turn the ship to more positive, generative, life affirmative news.
One thing I wanted to add, in every one of those modules, we're going to pick deep, inspiring leaders, let's say like Christopher Life. And if we're dealing with how do you evolve the political realm, for example, there is a genius at that. And we won't just have a talk from Christopher Life, we'll have a partnership in dialogue with the people who are actually at the leading edge of evolution. And what I've done in beginning to outline this based on the outline that you sent me is identifying the best people I know in the world who are at the edge themselves. Let's say like Lawrence Bloom, who is talking about many things, including going to Honduras and Colombia and with Juan Carlos to plant syncons in Mexico for participatory democracy. So we may well be talking to the president of Mexico, who is, you see, we're going to engage them because they will be excited to know that their evolutionary leaders interested in them, so that they will be a participant in a very, very deep way. And I think that out of these weeks that we're going to create, well, like we've done here for Awaken the New Species, this is a connection of evolutionary leaders real time. And none of the evolutionary leaders real time think they can do it alone. So I would really like it to be that the people who are taking this course are also potential leaders themselves. And wherever it is chosen, they can get involved in some of the most important things now happening, whether in media or in politics or in business. And we're not going to just have leaders talking. We're going to see, can we get it done? Can we make it happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we might say a word too about the 40, why 40? It's limited to 40. Is because as we were looking at this group, where Barbara's really got her hands deeply in it, in mentoring and coaching, in the programs that are here at Sunrise with the videotaping, the playback, we can't really do that well with a group bigger than 40, where she's personally involved like that. We get back into, a much larger group, and it's more, there can be interaction, like where Barbara's bringing people in on the chat, etc., but not the real leadership work that we're talking about. So that's why it's 40. That was not an arbitrary number.
Thanks. Yeah, and the thing I want to underscore what Barbara said as well is I said it before the break, being really intentional about the leaders that we bring in who are really themselves ready to work synergistically.
That's right. So we're going to make an effort, like we've done here at Awaken the New Species. Every single person here is awakening as a new species. That's why this is such an extraordinary event. So anybody who comes on as a well-known person, along with our evolutionary leader community here, is going to want to be participating with us in making this happen. So it's not getting a well-known person to speak to some of us, but rather to get us to co-create with that well-known leader, whether it be somebody in Mexico, or whether it be Christopher Life, or many other people at the growing edge themselves. And the people that I know are almost always themselves trying to make it happen, because we're in the quantum jump. So we all know this. And if we have success here, we would have a community not only of the 40 people taking the course, but of the great leaders that will be participating with us to make it happen. That's the spirit of it that I feel.
Absolutely, yeah. And these leaders who want to know you as much as you want to know them.
They need us.
Yeah, they need us.
That's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And pillar 3, identify and synergize. So we have topics like creating a new culture.
And Stephen, you on the isn't this awful for the speaker when you grab a mic? You just grab a microphone and bring it over here. Poor Stephen's trying to get through this, and Barbara and I, up.
I'll go with the flow.
Right. I was just the new news because that's such a big, biggie. I know that one of the things that's really important, and I think there was even a part of a workshop here, was this whole aspect of developing the new news, and really taking it. Barbara, you would like to see us knocking on CNN's door.
Let's have a 10-minute show on CNN. Let's actually get into the news. Let's go do this.
Yeah, and not just CNN, and there, CNN for sure, and MSNBC, and there are. Hazel Henderson has a channel now, right? Mm-hmm. Who's very much of a leader in this. So coming on to her program. So, but really turbocharging the news. Let's get this going in a bigger way.
I'm going to be making a list based on all these segments of the most active evolutionary agent leaders I know. Not just leaders, but they're actually leading somewhere. So let's say, what is Ervin Laszlo actually trying to get done now? It's not all the things he said. What are any of them trying to get done? So our leaders are going to be invited to participate with the getting done of the so-called elder leaders of our movement.
Yeah, and this is that piece about beyond just being didactic, right? It's really truly being participative, being in synergy with these folks like Ervin Laszlo who are doing the work.
All the leaders that I will be inviting are at their own frontier. Yeah. That's the thing, because they know it's a time of a quantum jump. So this is going to be very frontier-oriented.
Let me just pause there and see any questions before we continue on with the page. So it wasn't my intention to read the page to you verbatim, but just to make you aware of it. But any questions popping up? Yeah, yes. Get on Fox and Friends.
Yes. So there's going to be assignments like that, so that you're going to try to do that. And people will actually have to knock on that door and get in. Yeah, that's it. So, this is for real. I think we should say we would be attempting to make evolutionary happen rather than just learning about it. Because if you're in the midst of a quantum jump and the whole system is jumping, you don't just learn about that. You are jumping. That's the point.
Yeah, now more than ever. Doesn't it feel like we really would do this now? Even 2012 felt like a big year, but now 2018 with what's going on in the world, doesn't it feel like we really would do this now?
We'll work with Christopher Light.
It is the next step. Yeah. We feel like we were guided to just go, focus here for 9 months.
Any questions?
Yeah, when I'm saying 9 months, our teams have been working on this for a month, and even though we've got deep self-evolution going on now, our teams are deeply into this program, the planning of it, and so that's the 9 months.
Program duration is 6 months.
Right. Yeah, Suzanne has a.
Just wondering, among the different teachers, and they have large networks, is there any way that what one is doing can become known by other networks? Mm-hmm. As far as
Yeah, exactly. If the synergistic convergence will go for the leaders as well as those who are taking this course, because those leaders aren't synergizing. And the vision of a planetary awakening includes the connectivity of those people already awakening at leadership levels. That's what we'll be doing. Actually, the so-called course is an evolutionary impulse to bring those people who are at the growing edge connected to each other and to our our leadership community that we will be developing that will have a role to play in it. So this is not really a course. It's entering into evolution. And one of the things, Suzanne, of course, that will make the greatest difference is if we can synergize and find the way for them to want to do it, which I think we know how to do.
We should also say that the 6 months also was not arbitrary. We looked at a year and 9 months and 6 months, but we said, boy, you know, for something really deep, a deep intensive like this, it just seems like, as we felt into it, that 6 months was what people could really commit to and go all the way through the whole group without losing people, because it just was going too long. So that's what we felt into. In 6 months, we can really hold this whole community tight together and do it beginning to end.
Yeah, just something I want to add to that is what's happening here with Awaken the New Species is people are forming groups. And the Deepest Heart's Desire groups that were originally started at the hub of the wheel during the course are now gaining momentum, and more people will be coming into that. So this, as you can all see, what's happening here, this is not like an event that's going to be over. It's in a way a launching for members of our new species to connect, to co-create more and more. And we have people volunteering to report to each other as to what people are doing. So it's a living organism. And I think that we have to almost get ourselves away from the idea to think we're giving a course in something that is at the quantum jump point. Because when you come to think of it, the momentum is so great, and it's leaning into that shift point, which then you start changing as you're participating. And you start becoming newer or different yourself.
So, Stephen, you might bring in, you know, you said it's kind of, we almost don't like using the term Harvard Business School, but it's almost a Harvard Business School for this, you know, but in a different context.
Yeah,
you might
sure.
talk about that.
Yeah, so the thing, you know, any MBAs in here? MBAs? All right, so the whole idea with business school is that, especially if you go to something like a Harvard or a Northwestern or University of Chicago, most of those people go to those programs not so much for the education, they really go for the contacts. Okay, so this is where the kind of the old paradigm of business has it right, in the sense that these programs are designed in large part to connect. Because all of these people going through those programs are exalted once they complete them. And they become big shots in business, for lack of a better way, a more conscious way to say it. But now that they're connected to one another, they're able to cross-pollinate and maximize their impact. So we regard this as a Harvard Business School for evolutionary, the impulse of evolution. This is by connecting, bringing everyone together to work in synergy, and getting to know one another among the cohort, and also among the leaders that are being brought in. Those are the connections that are going to feed and evolve the movement.
Yeah, and I think that's particularly, as I've said a few times here, because we're living at the time of a quantum jump. So it's not that the leaders actually have jumped. I mean, they've jumped in certain domains, but nobody has helped the whole system jump. So because we are, I'll speak for myself, because I am deeply a conscious evolutionary and have studied how evolution jumps. The reason I really understand jumps is because evolution does that. But most people don't fully feel what a jump is like, except maybe internally from time to time it's it's like that. So this is, I mean, the more I'm thinking about how we're going to be doing this, we're doing it consciously at the jump point of the leader's life as well as the people taking the course life. And who knows what the people taking the course will be able to do for the people who think they're at the leadership level. In other words, you would be influencing the so-called growing edge leadership of our community by who you are. And most of them may not even know they're members of a new species. You know? So you might have to be spreading that word. I mean, I'm just really getting the living system that you're going to be part of. It's a living system.
Absolutely. Yeah. And really, there isn't a MBA program or a leadership program that's doing that.
There's no living system.
There's no living system.
I don't think so. Not at this level of complexity.
Right.
Because you see, we're dealing with many different elements of leadership. So it's not just business or not just science and technology or media. It's actually whole system shift, because you can't take a jump unless you're in the whole system shift. That's the way evolution does it.
Let me say too, Suzanne, you were using the term, there's a fragility about our work, our movement, which is true, really. If you look back the last couple of decades, you go to something like this and it was almost like throwing stardust, and then the wind would wash it away, and the memories was washed away too 18 months later. Well, that's part of this whole, where we're saying it's a movement, There's no more, that we're not going to have the wind wash anything away here. This is our time for presence really to come out fully and to embody and to express through all of us and to change the way that we live. The wind is not going to wash this away. And this program hopefully can be one of the elements of that. There'll be many, where there's just a new seriousness, a new devotion, a new,
It could be instrumental in the jump rather than studying the jump.
Yeah. There's the shift.
Instrumental is the word. It's instrumental in the quantum jump, in both the people taking this and the people so-called leading it, because we're all in the jump together. That's really the truth.
And it is a living system. So you think about your own, just your physical growing up, right? You didn't have to think about your human development. It happened. I mean, the intelligence was inherent, that it took care of itself. So so when you were this big, you weren't like willing yourself to do, right. So in the living system, everyone shows up. And my experience of programs like this is that people often will get themselves psyched out not to show up.
Isn't a program like that. Yeah, because you see, I think we might say there is no program like this because there hasn't been a moment like this in which we are attempting to connect the separate parts to make a new whole, greater than and different than the sum of the parts. In other words, we're entering evolution itself together, consciously. So therefore, conscious evolution is what we're doing. And each person's impulse is motivated by the greater process within them, connected with others. And so the actual process of the living system needs to create the expression of that whole system that we're making ourselves to be part of by being in this. You see what I'm saying? It is a living system approach.
And you've all experienced that in the last 12 months as well. So, like, it's embodied, right? Yeah.
And it is a new species. You see, a lot of existing leaders may not have thought of themselves as members of a new species, but certainly what I will be doing is explaining about Homo Amore Universalis, of which they are probably members, but even haven't given that much thought. So we're at the growing edge here with Awakening the New Species. I think that's why this has been such an amazing event. It has a natural quality to it, but newness is inherent in it.
Let me say one other, and then Suzanne, as we feel into this too, like back in Gandhi's day, one man could do it, right? I mean, look what Gandhi did. My God, I mean, such an amazing man. One man led that. And then with our civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr., look what one man did. But as has been shared so many times, with the jump, that the consciousness jump that's occurring across all sectors of society, one man or one woman couldn't possibly do this, right? Couldn't possibly affect this change. It's going to have to be hundreds of leaders that are stepping fully into their power, and all of us coming together to do it as we feel into it. Isn't that how it feels?
You know what it could be, Steve, is that there are all these different people leading, but the point of convergence of what's emergent would be our task. It isn't necessarily the task of the business leader or the news media and so forth. Those growing edges need points of convergence offered to them. And that by offering it, and with our people who are taking this course, we're offering an opportunity for convergence that really doesn't fully exist in our society, because it isn't anybody's calling to do precisely that.
Suzanne had her hand up.
You know, I was just thinking that the 4 pillars that you have, I mean, it's organized so it works. There have been so many different groups that I've been part of, and there's been a lot of spirit, but there was that little holding out, like it was not stated, but we know ultimately it's not going to work. But what you've set it up so it's going to work. And, you know, it means every single thing that you've identified.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're right. I've been in those programs that just didn't quite, yeah. Occupy movement, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
they were
yeah.
demonstrations, but they couldn't take it the whole way. I mean, we're not at the point of demonstrating.
yeah. And I'll tell you, so that the program is evolving right now. Like just us meeting the last couple hours here, this program's evolving because, you know, Barbara's identifying things where we haven't even talked to her, and I haven't talked through yet.
We're really
You know,
at the
so,
very beginning of even organizing it fully.
Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. So thank God for the recording here.
Thank you, Stephen. Barbara, I want to add something that I've spoken to you about that I think is really important here, because we're talking about something being born, which is an amazing event, which is also sacred. Mm-hmm. And so maintaining sacred, holy honoring of what's happening is different than figuring this all out with our mind.
Absolutely.
And as we've been talking about this weekend, the intimacy that's so hungered for happens in that holy, wholesome atmosphere.
Yes, yes.
And when you asked President Eisenhower about how do we use power for the good, I mean, if you substituted other words like, how do we use it for the purpose of life? How do we use it for holiness? And, you know, people might not like to use the word God, but there is something sacred about intimate knowing of our purpose.
Yes.
And holding the atmosphere so that keeping it sacred and wholesome so that what's happening is protected. A newborn baby is born into a very sacred experience.
This is very true, and I think you know this, Jane, but one of the very surprising things that happened during Awaken the New Species is the formation of what we're calling deepest heart's desire groups. And we visualize them right at the center of the hub of the wheel. Now, a deepest heart's desire is not something someone immediately knows about themselves. And so the deepest heart's desire groups, and this is what I've really learned in us being together, is where the heart begins to open up by the intimacy and the affinity, which you can't do without that. You don't just figure it out. And one of the reasons I was saying to Steve Farrell the other day, I work alone a lot. And I decided I'm going to be in a deepest heart's desire group. I'm not going to do it the way I've been doing, because you miss out on your own deepest heart's desire. And the nature of your deepest heart's desire comes from the source inside yourself in an environment of affinity and love. It doesn't show up otherwise. And I recognize that for myself. And one of the things that will happen, obviously, and that's now continuing to proliferate with the Awaken the New Species after the event, is we're going to do that during this program. So the discovery, and I'm going to ask for some of the people here to help us who have made a real understanding of Deepest Heart's Desire group as to how it works, so that we can offer that for the people taking this wonderful curriculum of leadership. And I actually think one of the things that we will be actually offering to some of the so-called leaders is their own deepest heart's desire. Because leaders tend to have to lead somewhat, not that they're alone, but they're not in deepest heart's desire affinity, because they're special. I mean, it's a question, it's a quandary. And so I learned this week with all the rest of you. We are going to bring at the threshold of the evolutionary leadership of the leaders of our movement the impulse of deepest heart's desire while we do this for the leaders and the people. I don't even want to call them students, but the participants themselves. And, you know, some of you who made a study of how to do this are going to be consultants for us to do it with everybody who takes part of this leadership movement. Because then we'll be planting at the growing edge of evolution, affinity, deep interaction in loving expression of who we are, which is part of the way evolution has to work. That's why it's not just a teaching of what somebody else learned and did a great job with. Is that right? Can you imagine that? Now we're going to cultivate among the leaders of our movement the deepest heart's desire for them, with each other and us. Wow. That's radical. Actually, that's radical. And you know, I've been saying we're at the stage of radical evolution at the root. And most of the people who are well-known leaders don't do that, including myself. I didn't do it. And I think I've told everybody this, but I'm not sure I told this to Jane, that my body was aching really badly. And when I came here and I got into these deepest heart's desire, intimacy, my body stopped aching. I mean, quickly, overnight. And, you know, there's a lot of lonely pioneering going on in this world of people who are leaders. I mean, it is part of the problem of being a leader. You tend to be lonely because you're leading. And so we have to even change our understanding of the word. Because without this level of affinity, you're probably not leading anywhere anymore.
Yeah. Share that. The deepest heart's desire, we didn't know that was going to be birthed out of this process. So just as this is this amazing living thing that is being created right now in the moment, and of course with planning and all, but who knows what gets discovered in the process of the affinity and the inquiry. It's a living thing that we just have to keep saying yes to.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, let's say the reason we're at a quantum jump where we don't have really good leadership of how to get through a quantum jump is you don't do it that way. You don't do, oh, there it is over there. You actually have to circle up and deepen your affinity for each other And out of that deepening comes epiphanies. Because actually nature takes jumps by joining together to create wholes greater than the sum of the parts. But if you get to be a leader, it's hard for you to do that. So we certainly don't want to train other people to do that. And so it'll be really interesting, because I thought of this in terms of the planetary awakening and the large scale event that it seems to be in my soul to work toward. It has, as what's happening is that the leaders of each sector of the wheel are in synergy on the internet. This is my vision, in such a way that they are far greater than the sum of their parts, all of them. It's not additive. So I'm just getting the possibility that the structure of this 6 months, because we're going to be integrating leaders of our movement with people who want to become leaders of the movement, that the process whereby we do this is going to create synergy at perhaps a level that we haven't done before. And that some of the people who have been working here on how to do this, like you, Ole, I mean, and Hans, where is Heinz? Is he here? He's upstairs? Okay, well then, Ole, you want to describe, Ole, the importance of the Deepest Heart's Desires group? I mean, why is it important?
Oh, I had a thought about my deepest heart's desire before I came. Well, things have just been happening. So you asked me to come and help with co-creation, and I started figuring, I need to think about this. And Fried came, and Isabella came, and suddenly we were 8 people and thinking about how to do co-creation. Sounds like a good thing to do. It feels meaningful. And then you said, you need to go into your heart, into your essence, and find the purpose of your life here on earth this time. And we did, and so our whole group did that. Yeah. So we started to really listen to each other's articulation of our deepest heart's desire, and they were good. But when we had to explain it to 7 other people and explain it from my genius, what I have to bring to the world, it became richer. And when it was reflected back by 7 people who I'd never seen before, who were very different from me, who could explain to me the importance of what I was doing and explain to me what I had to offer to the world, it became so much more important, and I felt so empowered to do what I'm doing. So I am, thanks to the small groups, 10 times more passionate, committed, and I'm committed to my fellow group members, and we will support each other for the rest of our lives to make this a better world. And so without the connection to the deepest heart's desire in a deep way, I would be very insignificant.
You folks, you want to come around and just say something? Because what I'm really getting, this is the first time we've presented, we haven't been here together before this way, and it's perfect that we're doing it here, is because the process of evolutionary leadership that we will be offering to people who are very well-known folks who probably will be so empowered by having that feeling of deep affinity that will be the process of our co-creation together. I mean, right built into the structure of the learning. Does that make sense? Okay.
Hi, everyone. So today, when we had that meeting with the 2 groups of the Deepest Heart's Desire group, the one beautiful thing we came up with is a really great description and we haven't solidified it yet, but I'm thinking we might. So Deepest Heart's Desire Group is a group designed to help individuals discover and ignite their deepest heart's desire. So help the individuals in the group. This is what Sarah came up with. When you form this group, that's the sole purpose, is to help the individuals in the group that you come together to discover and ignite that deepest heart's desire.
Wow.
So that's the like 2-minute elevator description of the Deepest Heart's Desire group. We decided that Holy 8 was too well, holy, it seems too religious, and it really didn't capture what
Deepest Heart's Desire. Thank you.
And that was Sherwood really was pushing towards that too. So really Sherwood, wherever Sherwood is. So it's wonderful. I think we've all come together in that agreement with the Deepest Heart's Desire group.
Thank you. And I'm also getting something about the Deepest Heart's Desire groups. Is I discovered when I started realizing people wanted to form small groups, and I said, well, let's call it Deepest Heart's Desire, because the deepest heart's desire is the impulse of evolution becoming conscious as you. And it's almost always thresholding, because evolution itself is evolving. So even whatever you did, whenever you did it, and you might have done it very well, because it's the evolutionary quantum jump moment, even the fact that you did it so well isn't it. And maybe, Jean, you want to say something about the intergalactic communication function.
Well, the intergalactic university that everybody, just about everybody in this room, has been hearing about over the past year. Remember, what we're doing here is we're creating a doorway. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry, guys. We're creating a doorway. We're creating a doorway to help take the human species at a sustained high level through the door so that it is a mature, grown-up species that can then interact in a healthy way with an intergalactic community. So what we do here is extremely important. We're growing up. The human species is waking up. It's growing up. And who was it that said this morning? I think it was Christopher, who said humans are teenagers right now, the human race. All right, I love teenagers. You got that tough? Because they have very little inhibitions. They're willing to try anything. They will take risks. When those of us who may have gone through certain conditionings in life are hesitant. Well, gang, we can't be hesitant anymore. We have come to the edge. And who was it that said, come to the edge, he said? They said, we are afraid. Come to the edge, he said. They came, he pushed them, and they flew. So we're at that point now. So
thank you so much, Jean. And so at the edge, it's the social synergy that makes the edge emerge as the new. I really believe that the new is through the synergy of separate parts, making a new whole, different than and greater than. That's why if I'm a leader at one of the sectors, unless I'm synergizing more deeply, I will not be new. I've already done it, and I've written it, and I've said it, and I'm good at it, and I've written books on it. So what we're going to do, I believe, everybody, Stephen and myself, is we're going to create social synergy in the process of self and social leadership. And we're going to call on people who have been really good at that. Because if you add great content to deep social synergy, then you have a quantum jump. You see what I'm saying? Deep, sophisticated content of knowledge and I'm thinking of the Irvin Laszlo's of the world and all the leaders, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, most of them are teachers that go out and teach, like me. The one thing good about me is that I did figure out Sinkan, but years ago. I haven't been doing it. See, I'm the same thing myself. And what I realized when I got into the Deepest Heart's Desire groups here, that's my heart's desire is to be held in a Deepest Heart's Desire group where the impulse in me can come forward more. I'm super creative in that domain. Does that make sense to anybody? It ignites. So we will be co-creating in the evolutionary leadership something profoundly needed at the growing edge of evolution, which is synergy. I mean, that is the thing that's most needed here. So we have to be experiencing it to do this, yes. Oh, yeah.
I was thinking about in our younger years how we would do, get things done. And then we get into this space where we understand about being. And I think we've been in this space of getting to know ourselves and being in life and not a doer. And now I think we're being called again to take our doing and our being together, put it together, and to take that jump, that leap, and do. Like you said, we're going to make it happen. That's doing again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. That the being and doing have to come together now, because we have a lot of spiritual beingness and we also have a lot of doingness. And we have great leaders of this movement that really haven't had this experience together with the people who are so-called taking this course. I'm saying so-called taking the course because they're going to help create the course they're taking. See, there's the mystery that I'm discovering about being at the quantum edge of evolution. There's nobody who's given the course. If somebody had given the course, we would have taken it. But we are experiencing the course through affinity, through Deepest Heart's Desire and the genius of joining with the most brilliant people in the world. Hey, is that a good idea? Wow, I think I'll take this course. Wow. I mean, and what is good about me, actually? I'm trying to think, what is good about me? Well, let's see, what is it? Why would I be chosen to do this? I'm a visionary, a practical visionary. You know, another thing about me that is interesting to me is I have incarnated the growing edge of the evolutionary impulse. So the reason I'm always evolving is that I feel that the particular gift I have is a special attunement to the impulse of evolution at its own edge. And in many ways, it's made life difficult for me. Because you think, well, what's wrong with you? Why? How come you're still evolving when you could have done so well, with what you did yesterday? Well, it's not that. It's not that I'm saying it's even good. But if you can help me here for a minute, what is good about me for doing this that you could see? Tell me.
I'm speechless. I read Nelson Mandela's book, Long Walk to Freedom, for 2 years straight. My mom had Alzheimer's. He was going, it portrayed a situation where for 50 years he was going through this incredible journey where things kept getting worse and worse and worse. So you ask yourself, how can somebody maintain the vision of something higher than that? And in our country, for 2 years, we've been going through something similar, but it's not quite 50 years. And so through Susanna, I very luckily got the chance to meet a gentleman by the name of Cap Dean, who was the head of USAID to South Africa, who helped Nelson Mandela attain that freedom for the South Africans. And what he said to us that was so memorable to me was that Nelson Mandela was 1 in 10 million, 1 in 100 million people, in that how he maintained that vision through that entire time, that he never lost it. So Barbara, for 50 years or however long, you have been this light for that conscious evolution, that concept. And all the great leaders of the world, they have one single thing that they may go in many different directions, but Martin Luther King, I have a dream. Yes. And they become the light for that one single thing. And so that's what you've been, Barbara.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, you know, and I always thought somehow it was a fault. Because you should have gotten better at something else than always taking a step forward by the sense of vision of what's emergent. But maybe what I'm discovering right now is that this is the exact moment that I would be good at. That because maybe that's why Steve Farrell and Stephen Dynaco have invited me to do this, is because it is the exact moment that I have been expressing and experiencing. And by being at it together in deepest heart's desire, which is the methodology of knowing the direction of the jump. Not just knowing it intellectually, but actually expressing it through your heart's desire. So my heart's desire is this. My heart's desire is for us to synergize with the leaders of the evolutionary movement that are brilliant, such that we can, through intimacy and love and joining genius, be guides in the jump. Yes? Is that possible, folks? Wow. That's why I'm still alive. It really is. I mean, I have asked myself that, you know, and I invite you then, if you feel at that growing edge of yourself, the impulse that can only be expressed through affinity and love and shared expression, to help make this happen. So that everybody who signs up is going to help make it happen. Wow, I'm going to cry now. It's actually true. Yes.
As I'm watching you unfold and come into your own awakening of this moment for you, it's exactly what is going to happen to all the other leaders who are going to be leading the course, that you said they will also now have the support of the deepest heart desire behind them, and they're going to evolve just into their highest potential, just like you are right now.
That's really true. Yes. Because nobody's asking them their deepest heart's desire. They're teaching what they know in general. And I think by my own, if you might say, deficiencies, I have gotten to this apex point. Because I couldn't get stuck anywhere since I was always going somewhere. And I was always aware of the evolutionary impulse. What is it going toward? It's going towards higher consciousness. It's going toward greater freedom of every individual, and it's going to more complex integrative love. Now, that's a multi-billion-year trend. And so that's what we're going for when we do this. Yes?
Thank you. Barbara, I used to be, I say I used to be because the bill is no longer on the ballot, but I used to be the representative of Northern Arizona. I was an unpaid lobbyist for a bill in Washington, and it was to establish a Department of Peace and Disarmament. You probably know of it. And one of the things that was the stumbling point in talking with leaders was that one or two people in the group who were very altruistic but didn't really know their facts would talk about peace on earth while we were talking about the practicalities. And suddenly, the moment that this peace on earth would come out, there was a kind of glazed look. And it was, well, we have another meeting at, and that was the end of our meeting. So I say that because I love your nomenclature. You use words which are uplifting, that are visionary, but they don't touch on that over altruistic. We're all in our head, but not actually getting things done. And I think that is so valuable. And that's what will move things forward.
So I think I've said, really, I've had a discovery process through being here with you and through being here with Steve. And, I have felt that you've given a great deal of responsibility and trust in me that I want to be worthy of. I mean, truly worthy of it. And that going to my own growing edge here is by opening up your growing edge to be able to synergize with leadership that themselves need to synergize not necessarily a formal wheel of co-creation, but in the intimacy of these deepest heart desire groups that will be formed with the leadership of our movement and those who are taking this course. Wow. That would be so good for the existing leadership. It would be so good for us who will be arising as leaders of the movement. And what is going to lead this movement but greater affinity, joining genius, and love of each other? We've got all the technology we need. We just step right into Singularity University, and they want to help everybody. They do. So I would like to see our leadership training then go to Peter Diamandis and says, what is your deepest heart's desire, Peter? And bring him into an affinity group. You see, the so-called leaders who, when you're a leader, you're always leading, but you're not necessarily joining genius and affinity because it's not so easy. Yes.
Feeling like I want to speak for our hub for just a minute. And I've been trying not to be too generalized throughout the whole process, and I'm seeing the beauty of the flow of the impulse-driven forward creative motion and the small groups and the individual sacred heart's desires. But I think that our original cohesion was around the planetary awakening, and that stands in the hub fueling this whole branch out and flow, and it really needs tending all along the way too, even while we're creating individually and in our small groups. And
so, thank you. What we're also saying then is exactly the way I opened this, is that we have a shared goal, which is the planetary awakening in love. But when you join together for whatever it is that comes out of that, there is, because it's a quantum moment in evolution. Yes, I mean, I can see that being the strange attractor that would be shared by everybody. Is that right? Jane, is that right? Jane, you know, she's been running Sunrise Ranch for quite some time, and she's a remarkable leader. So I just wondered what you were thinking. Would you like to say something?
Wow. I'm in love with you. And I'm not saying that for to be cute. I'm in love with what you're holding. And so as the experience I'm having in my sacred place is that you, when I speak about your fulfillment and what you're longing for, to be the participant in the leap off the edge of this happening, I think what's really important is for you to know how much fulfillment you have already had. You have, everyone in this room, their life has been changed by you. And part of what's going to cause or accelerate this leap is the deep appreciation for all you've already done. By you. By you. By you. But I'm not done. There is a way that you have been longing and leading, and you need to at times stop and be in the glory. To be in the celebration. And I'm not saying it to like kiss butt here. I'm talking about how life actually works. Because if we don't do that, we can't see as well. Our vision is greater when we're in the glory of the fulfillment of what our life has been dedicated to and what you've created. And I have to do that with my life, or I will not see what I'm supposed to do next. And what you've just invited us to is vision, mutual vision. So I bow to you in all you have done, but you need to bow to yourself. Acknowledge what a great thing you've already done.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you. Well, I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for being here, for having come forward as members of the new species for the first time, and to be discovering together what it means to be members of a new species together, which is then giving me so much joy. I'm feeling it just this moment. Jane, thank you. Thank you, Jane. Thank you.